started here. My name is State Representative Mike Sterla from Lancaster. I chair the House Majority Policy Committee. We're here today for a hearing on property tax payment options. And what I'd like to do is we'll introduce the members that are here, see whether Representative Murphy wants to make a few comments, and then we'll get to our first person who's here to testify, who's Janet Evans. So if you want to, you can start coming up to the microphone while we're getting ourselves introduced here. I'll start to my right.
My name is John Galloway, State Representative in the 140th District in Long Beach County.
Representative Ken Smith, 112th District, Lackawanna County. This is the 112th District.
Good afternoon, Representative Eddie Dabrushinsky, Luzerne County, 121st District.
Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Murphy, Representative, 113th District.
As I said earlier, Mike Sterla from Lancaster. I'm the 96th Legislative District.
Jim Wansack, representing parts of Lackawanna, Luzerne, Wyoming, and Susquehanna counties.
Tim Syke, representing part of Schuylkill and part Berks, the Cabela's and the England District.
Hi, I'm Dante Santoni. I'm from Berks County.
Representative Murphy.
Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming here today to hear the testimony regarding House Bill 1942. Brief history of the bill. This bill was initiated because there's been some tax problems that have been identified to me through many of my constituents that I represent within the Scranton area. What we're looking to address is the current situation with the Scranton single tax office, the Scranton School Board, and the county collection of taxes. Currently, those three taxing bodies, those taxes are collected through the single tax office. There's a bill sent out annually, and all three taxing entities and the amounts that are owed through property taxes are indicated on one statement. It's been brought to my attention that this process has been very confusing for many years to many people. We have the county tax, as I said, the city and the city's tax and the school tax. But there are three quarterly payment stubs on the bottom of the tax statement. If you pay your taxes quarterly and timely, you will still find that at the end of the year, and beginning of the following year, you'll be getting a phone call from the county tax claim bureau if your county taxes weren't paid. Many people think when they pay their quarterly payments that their taxes are paid in full for the year. That only satisfies the obligation for the Scranton property tax and for the school property tax. You have to pay the county tax separately. And this is very confusing, and it's especially confusing in the event that the taxes aren't paid in a timely manner. Because the city of Scranton, through an ordinance that was passed through the council and signed by the mayor, the legislation, allows for an outside tax collection agency to collect the Scranton city property taxes when they become delinquent. The company, NCC, that collects those taxes that has exorbitant fees, penalties, and interest associated with the collection of these taxes. Now, we all understand as elected officials, and we all understand as taxpayers, that we have to pay our taxes because services that are important to our community have to be provided. We're here today to listen to testimony from citizens, from elected officials, from the city, county, and the school board to find out if there might be a better way to collect these taxes, a way that makes it more simple to collect these taxes, in a way that makes it very clear exactly what your tax obligations are to each taxing entity, and to find a way to collect these taxes effectively and hopefully more compassionately. I thank you for allowing me a few moments to speak on the issue, Mr. Chairman, and here to testify before us today is the City Clerk, Nancy Craig. She's here representing President of the City Council, Janet Evans. Mrs. Craig?
Good afternoon. The Thank you very much for inviting us to testify today. Mrs. Evans would like me to say that I'm here on her behalf. She is not able to attend because of the serious medical issues that she has. But she has prepared a written statement that she would like me to read. She's particularly grateful to Representative Murphy and members of his staff.
Excuse me.
Well, close the microphone a little closer.
I'm sorry.
Like real close.
I'm so sorry. How's that?
That's fine.
This is written statement by Mrs. Evans that she's asking me to read. I am particularly grateful to Representative Murphy and members of his staff who shortly after taking office in 2008 visited my home, listened to my proposal to separate city and school district tax bills, and thereafter authored House Bill 1942. This bill will serve as the sole means of much-needed tax relief for the citizens of Scranton, a distressed city of the second Class A. As evidence of such, it is both vital and valid to consider the following facts. On June 7, 2007, under the direction of Mayor Doherty, a 3-member majority of Scranton City Council passed File of Council number 82 of 2007, an ordinance which approved 23 costs, charges, expenses, and fees, including attorney's fees and third-party collector fees, in addition to the previously adopted interest at the rate of 10% plus 1/2 per month thereafter. This draconian ordinance culminates in a sheriff's sale of taxpayers' homes. I did not support this ordinance and have worked tirelessly to amend it since 2007 without success. The City of Scranton receives no revenue realized from the collection of these 23 additional costs, charges, expenses, and fees. Rather, it is the third-party collector, one of whose owners also serves as an attorney of record in these collections, that receives all monies collected above the face value and original interest and penalty. The City of Scranton and Scranton Redevelopment Authority appear to have received less than the estimated delinquent tax revenue necessary to meet financial obligations incurred by the sales of these delinquent taxes. Because the dollar amounts owed by delinquent taxpayers escalate far beyond their financial ability to pay, large numbers of delinquencies remain unpaid. The City of Scranton suffers with a 9.7% unemployment rate and over 24% population struggling at or below the poverty level, an unusually high percentage of senior citizens surviving on fixed incomes, and a shriveling tax base caused by the insatiable appetites of large local nonprofit institutions, which stripped over 25% of taxable properties from the city and school district tax rolls, and yet provide no payments in lieu of taxes. In addition, Scranton has remained a distressed city for more than 17 years. Much like our neighbors throughout this great Commonwealth, we endure the regular increases inflicted by utilities, healthcare, and unfunded government mandates that overburden our working families, our senior citizens, our poor and disabled. The majority of Scrantonians cannot afford 23 costs, charges, and fees that are attached to tax delinquencies. They can secure neither loans nor second jobs in order to save their homes. The annual tax bill dispersed by the Scranton Tax Office to city residents includes the annual taxes due for the city, the Scranton School District, the County of Lackawanna, and the county library system. The county library taxes form a separate single bill. However, the city and school district taxes are combined into one bill. The school district tax is significantly higher than that of the city annually and without exception. The combination of the city and school district tax bills creates a formidable financial burden on all Scrantonians. But unlike the school district, only the City of Scranton owns the legal right to confiscate homes by sheriff's sale. If the tax bills are separated, such separation will enable a taxpayer to meet his significantly smaller city tax obligation and avoid the draconian penalties of File of Council number 82 of 2007. Further, for all delinquent taxpayers who face the penalties of this ordinance due to unemployment, illness, or other serious circumstances, the establishment of a payment schedule as included in House Bill 1942 will enable them to save their homes and properties. Scranton is already host to countless condemned, abandoned properties. It can ill afford to increase its numbers. Undoubtedly, there will be those who testify against this crucial House bill today. Some may say it is too expensive or laborious to separate tax bills. Others may state that the separation of city and school district bills may potentially inflict financial harm upon the school district. As a fellow elected official, I call upon you to remember the duties and responsibilities we are sworn to uphold. Government is competent only when those who compose it work as trustees and servants of the people. The role of government is to help the greatest number and harm the least. Local government has harmed its people by adopting a failing and damaging delinquent tax ordinance, and I am asking our state government to help them today. I've enjoyed the privilege and honor of serving on the council of the City of Scranton since 2004 and was recently elected council president. Throughout these years, I have been blessed to meet tens of thousands of hardworking, proud, and resilient Scrantonians who do not seek a handout, who do not easily complain or rage against authority, but who demand fairness and accountability from elected officials. Scrantonians are asking you to listen to their needs and to act with immediacy to separate tax bills and create a delinquent tax payment schedule. I too respectfully request your support of House Bill 1942, which will affect no municipality throughout Pennsylvania other than Scranton. Please help to restore the public's faith in state government and their elected representatives. Thank you. Janet Evans, President, Scranton City Council.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Craig. I'd like to ask my colleagues if they have any questions. I would also like to add that I wish Mrs. Evans well in her recovery from her back injury. I appreciate her testimony here today, and I'm quite certain that she regrets that she couldn't be here personally to give testimony. But I would also like at this time to ask any of my colleagues if they have any questions that you'd be willing to answer for them, Mrs. Craig.
I would, and I would also like to say that I was the tax clerk for the City of Scranton for many years, so I do know what the process was prior to the hiring of Northeast Credit and Collection. So if you had any questions in respect to that, I'd be glad to answer them. Also, Mrs. Evans had instructed me to do that.
Representative Shinsky. Thank you, Representative Murphy, and thank you very much. That was exactly the first question that I was going to ask you was, what was the process before? How did that process compare to the new process? And what is the tax collection rate before as opposed to now?
Let me start with the last question first. I think that's hard to compare because the processes were so different. Having been involved as a much younger person when I first started at City Hall, I'm aware of how we did it. Being a Class 2A city, we had a city treasurer's sale every year. It was based on 1 year of delinquent taxes for taxes 3 years prior to the date of the sale. It's actually all in state law and how that process takes place. It's posted and so on. It was very much mirrored what would happen in Pittsburgh. In no way, shape, or form was it to take away a person's home. The amount of the tax would be advertised, and it was my experience that many citizens would come in to pay right before the sale as they would get their money together and come in to pay. We never sold a home, we never sold anyone's property. In fact, if properties were bid on at the sale, the owner had a year to redeem them. I was lucky enough to work under a very lovely lady who has since passed away. Lena Rayo was the deputy treasurer for over 60 years. And she was very compassionate and kind and would show people the way on how best to pay their taxes. If they needed to pay on account, we accommodated them, and we made sure that everyone did the best they could to stay up to par. Once the Pennsylvania Economy League came in, they looked for all sorts of ways to raise revenue. So they told us we should use a collection agency. However, the collection agency never took the taxes in the right way, that they could give them back to us so we could have a tax sale. We haven't actually had a tax sale since 1998. That is incredibly wrong. It's keeping many properties they may be abandoned lots with no heirs at this point off of the tax rolls, and bought by potentially new people. So originally, the collection agency took their fee out of what they collected for the city. That would be, they would collect the base tax and the interest and penalty, and then take their fee from that, 25%. Once Mayor Doherty came in, he changed that to their collection fee would go on top of what the city would collect in the base tax and interest. So they now are collecting 25% on top of that. It was always my experience that the amount of uncollectibles is the same now as it was then, approximately 25%. There are many other ways to bring the money in. Amnesty is always a good way. Going back to a city treasurer sale, if we were ever to get anyone that would be competent in collecting our taxes, that would be a very viable way to go.
Now, if I could just follow up, when I said the collection rate, normally it's about 92%, 94%. That's the percentage that I was looking for.
Are you
Total
saying?
collection rate of all the properties.
Well, it's been, when we would look at the amount that the assessed value in the taxes, how much is actually assessed, it would always be approximately 25% that was never collectible.
So then you had a 75% tax collection rate?
I'm not sure how that would figure out into dollar terms because the budget actually reflects what's actually collected. They do not budget for potentially how much is out there. A budget reflects more accurately what they have been collecting over many years.
Okay. We're probably not talking the same terminology, but generally, high 80s, low 90s would be the tax collection rate. How many successful payments have been made as opposed to those who have defaulted. So it's a number that I would certainly look for to determine the success of this new company. And the idea again here, my question was to find out whether this company is worth the dollars paid, in the process of collecting the taxes for the city of Scranton.
I understand your question, and I am not aware of the amount NCC promises to collect and then the amount they actually collect.
Do you know what a total amount of money NCC has earned, like on a yearly basis?
No, I do not.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Representative Wansack?
Thank you, Nancy. My questions are right along the lines of Representative Shinsky's. You stated that when you worked in the tax collection office, it's hard, but you're saying maybe you guys collected then 75% of the total 100% revenue? Is that what you're saying?
No, we are talking two different things.
Yeah.
The process of collecting the taxes was you would pay, whoever didn't pay on time, after 2 years, your property was liened. There would be a lien filed in the courthouse. After the 3rd year, the city would have a treasurer's sale. And at that time, many people would come in to pay because they would see their name in the newspaper and so on. So at that time, a lot of money came in bulk. Now, how that compares to how quickly the delinquencies come in from NCC, I'm not sure. But I think in the long run, we were talking about a system that was fair and that was working. The original intent of hiring NCC was people that had been delinquent for years and years and years, maybe 10, 20 years. And then they went after those accounts in particular. And I believe that was satisfied. To keep a collection agency now and allow them to charge those fees over people that are delinquent for a year or two is totally ridiculous, especially when those monies do not come back into the city. If I'm a taxpayer and I'm late because of illness or unemployment, and I'm paying a penalty, at least I know those penalties are coming back to me.
Nancy, that's my question.
Yeah.
Okay, getting back, you're saying they're charging 25% to collect this.
Yes.
So Scranton would still get all of their taxes that they have to owe to them, and then the recovery agency would charge 25% on top of that.
Yes.
When you were collecting this without the agency, was Scranton charging a late charge or a penalty to collect late taxes?
Yes, it's
And
the
what was
ordinance.
the percentage? What was the percentage?
The percentage, the ordinance has been around for many, many years, and the percentage is 10% when you're originally delinquent and a half a percentage point on top of that every month thereafter until it reached 100%. At some point in time, they decided they would never charge more than double the face value of the tax.
So if you're looking at 2 years, which you're saying a lot of times, or it would be 10% plus a half percentage per month,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
So that would be climbing up to about 22% anyway.
yes.
Am I
Mhm.
correct with that?
Yes,
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. I know you keep mentioning this 25%, but it seems to me Scranton before that was charging 22% anyway.
and we still are, and now,
And that's why I think it's important for us to know
Mhm.
what is the success, and maybe other people will be able to answer these questions.
Mhm.
Is it more cost efficient doing it this way? Is it less cost efficient to the city and taxpayers? And how much more revenue are they collecting NCC as compared to what was being collected before? And I think that just helps, because that's the numbers that adds up. And maybe it's not you, Nancy, that can answer these
Right,
questions.
it
Maybe it's
probably-
somebody other to testify.
right. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Representative Paszynski has a follow-up question.
Representative Wanzak cleared that up.
Okay.
I wanted to make a few brief comments as well as ask a couple of questions. But in summary, House Bill 1942 seeks to address an issue that's unique to the city of Scranton. And that's why when this bill initially proposed in Urban Affairs Committee and passed unanimously through Urban Affairs Committee, that's why I put the brakes on the legislation. Didn't bring it to the floor for a House vote on second consideration, because I wanted to bring my colleagues from all over Pennsylvania here to Scranton, because it's a unique piece of legislation that deals with the Scranton tax issue as the only Class 2A city here in Pennsylvania. And I really appreciate them coming here and listening. But more importantly, I wanted to get testimony from the taxpayers, from the people here in the city of Scranton who are being affected. So we could put, personalize this, and put a face to the situation that's going on. Because I understand there are a lot of people that are getting behind, and more so now than ever, with unemployment approaching 10% here locally, and that's given a specific formula that may not be that accurate. I feel it's a bit higher than that. And I also believe that there are people with these, other than the penalties, fees, and interest associated with the delinquent collection through a private collection agency, may otherwise, be able to make an attempt to pay on their taxes. And that's why it stipulates in the legislation that we want to make payments, installment payments, available to those who are in delinquency as well. It's very difficult, and we've all been in different difficult financial situations at one time or another in our life, where if you're having a problem financially and you get behind and there's penalties, fees, or interest associated with a loan payment or a tax payment, that when you double that, or when you increase that significantly, and that has to be paid in a lump sum, it's practically impossible at that point for a lot of people to pay their taxes. And by and large, the people that have reached out to me and that have talked about this issue are people that don't want to neglect the responsibility to pay their taxes, but they want to be able to pay their taxes in installments and pay it as the money comes in, because when you have to make that lump sum payment, it makes it very difficult on a lot of people. And I know there are people who are in jeopardy of losing their homes, and I know that people, if the tax bills were separated, it was made more clear. That's one of the premises of this whole piece of legislation, is that we have to collect the taxes, but we also have to make it more clear for people so that they could identify what their tax obligations are, pay their tax obligations, and my contention is that in many instances, the city will realize the savings, not an additional cost through separation of the tax bills, because the the tax forms could be put in the same envelope. There wouldn't even be any extra additional required postage. But every municipality throughout Pennsylvania has to take out tax anticipation notes to fulfill their obligations for public safety and for service to the community. All that money doesn't come in up front. So all the boroughs, townships, and municipalities take out tax anticipation notes. In the city of Scranton, these tax anticipation notes are in the tens of millions of dollars. So the sooner the money comes into the city coffers, the faster you're able to repay those tax anticipation notes, and the more savings that you realize in the back end through savings and interest. So that was one of the thoughts that I had, as you know, some who were concerned had mentioned the cost factor. So I did take that into consideration. But most importantly, I wanted to bring, I don't have all the answers, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I'd like to work on a solution. So that's why I put the brakes on the legislation. That's why I came here to the city of Scranton. That's why I had my colleagues come from all across the state to listen to the unique problem of Scranton as a Class 2A city, to see if together we might be able to come up with a compassionate solution and still fulfill our requirements to provide the services that our citizens so direly need. One of the questions that I had for you, you did address with regards to the history of the tax collection. But I think it's important to note that you had mentioned during your testimony that there are tax anticipation notes. There's loans that the city had taken out that through the collection process of the outside entity being NCC here, the private collection agency, with the penalties, interest, and fees being collected up front, the city is having a problem fulfilling its loan obligation to pay that back, which in the end may create another problem for the city of Scranton taxpayers, because now they're paying more because they're not fulfilling the debt services that are required to pay back the loans that they took out initially. Could you elaborate on that at all?
It's our office's understanding that NCC has not been able to collect the money they need to pay back MRS. We actually sold our loans to the Redevelopment Authority, or our taxes, who then sold them to Municipal Revenue Services, or gave, however this was worked out. I don't believe any of it was legal, personally. And now NCC is trying to collect the money, and they just have not been able to, is our understanding.
And just as a quick follow-up, and I won't keep you here all day, what was the agreement with the Redevelopment Authority when the city sold the outstanding tax liability to them that is now being collected by NCC to repay the loan that was made to the city by the Redevelopment Authority?
I may not have all the information on that. Being a clerk at that time in the office, I would not know the inside story, but once anything goes to the Redevelopment Authority, then they have full power without it going past City Council. And we've seen this happen with this administration, things that they wanted council not to have a say in, they've moved to the authorities. And unfortunately, our delinquent taxes have become one of those casualties. And I think it's a very dangerous thing to do. I think it needs to go back a lot to the way it was prior. Do we need a collection agency in some respect? Probably, but not nearly what they've given the power, that much power to NCC. That's got to be reined in.
So you think by, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, by putting the Redevelopment Authority, by giving them the authority, they've taken a lot of the accountability away from the elected officials in Scranton, i.e. the City Council.
They have taken much of it away.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. If anyone else doesn't have any further questions, then I'll thank Nancy Craig for her testimony.
Thank you.
And once again, pass along our best wishes for a speedy recovery to our City Council President, Janet Evans. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next testifier we have this afternoon is Andy Sparaglia. Andy Sparaglia is with the Lackawanna County Taxpayers Association.
Good afternoon, legislators or state senators. I mean, state, forget it.
Good afternoon.
My name is, I know you represent me, and I know you're with the state and so forth. I just like legislators. It goes to either a senator or a state rep. My name is Andy Sprague. As a member of the Lackawanna Scranton Taxpayer Association, I come before you seeking help on an issue that is without doubt a gross injustice to the taxpayers of Scranton. When a penalty far outpaces the crime, namely a series of fines for late payment of city taxes, the fines imposed for late payment of taxes are 10% to the city, like Nancy said, plus, 25% to a collection agency, which is NCC. I have given you the contracts on all these things and the legislation. And an additional list, which he didn't really go on, from A to W, add-on penalties, which to me is the more crime of all the tax add-ons. They run from A to W. And it says here now, review the confirmation of liens by a consultant retained to be or to be retained by the city in the amount of $25 per lien. $160 for file opening and review by a third-party collector, and for the preparations and mailing of initial notice of delinquency and a demand for payments, plus the cost of applicable postage. $35 for preparing and mailing of any second or sequential notice of delinquency required by the law, plus the cost of applicable postage. $175 for the cost of preparing and filing of liens with the Office of the Pottery of the county to account for monies received, and for the preparation and filing of any of these receipts to satisfy a lien so filed. The actual filing and satisfaction fees in effect at the time of the lien is filed and satisfied, and when each fees are assessed or established by the Office of Pottery of the county or such instrumental of government as shall be charged as established for such fee. $175 for the preparation, filing of a writ of, I guess faces some thing there. $30 for the preparation, mailing of any correspondence or notice required by Rule 237-1 of Pennsylvania Rules of Civil Procedure or similar rule. $175 for the preparation, filing of default judgment to account for money received, and for the preparation and filing of any of these to satisfy the liens, I guess the paperwork. The actual filing and satisfaction of fees in effect at the time of the default judgment is filed and satisfied established by the Office of Attorney of the county or other instruments of government as shall be charged with the establishment of such fee. $800 for the preparation and filing of a writ of execution for the sheriff's sale. The actually filing service, execute, and poundage fees, if any, for service and execution by the Office of Sheriff of the county, which are in effect at the time of such filing, service, and execution established by the Office of the Sheriff of the county and such instruments of the government as shall be charged with the establishment of such fee. $175 for the preparation, filing, and conducting of proceedings to the effective service of process. $30 for the costs incurred in connection with the issuance of the writs. Actual costs of publication for any required legal notices. $50 for the preparation and filing of the petition to assess damage or similar petition of motion. $25 for the preparation and filing of any precept, petition, or motion to continue a judgment or sheriff's sale. $400 for attendance by legal counsel as judicial sheriff or tax sale. $30 for the handling of payments instrument returned to the finance for insufficient funds. $100 for the preparation and filing of bankrupt proof of claim. $50 for accounting, bookkeeping associated with administrative payment plans of accepting more than 3 payments within no event shall payments plan be permitted to exceed 12 consecutive months. In event of that extraordinary litigation should arise, attorney fees at an hourly rate of no less than $60 or no more than $225 per hour commencing with the attorney's normally hourly rate of legal service. The actual costs incurred for the necessary of title searches. The actual costs are reasonable or customary out-of-pocket costs and expenses incurred for the service outlined herein. That is added on to the 10%, the 25%, and then to the end. If you added it up, just the dollar amount in there, it would come to $2,470. The basic tax in Scranton is very low. The city tax, it runs around 600 and some dollars. And you can see by adding all these penalties on there, you're running up to like $4,000 or $5,000 in cost. That's entirely unjustified. Nobody says you should not pay your taxes. That's understandable. I can understand the school too if you should separate them. I understand their problem. But look at it this way. How many people are going to be pushed out of their homes? How many children are going to be pushed out of their homes if we allow these things to stand? You understand too that the school district will assess them properties at the time of sale. So they will get their money back, maybe not immediately, but whenever, either through people paying or through the sale of the property at a later date. They will get their assessment back. And I don't understand why people should have to pay these huge penalties during these troubling times. And that's all I got to say on this subject.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spragley. Would any of my colleagues like to address any questions to Mr. Spragley? Representative Syke.
Thank you, Representative Murphy. Thank you for your testimony today. I don't really have any comments or questions for you specific to your situation, but just the property tax structure in general. I think that we're just beating our heads against the wall here. I believe that the city administration probably feeling a lot of pressure because we're dealing with a real antiquated system. There's certainly a lot of pressure on the city. People just don't do things the same way that they used to. People probably come into the city of Scranton, they see a baseball game or a hockey game, and then they go home, where they pay their property taxes to some other township or some other borough, and at best, they might just bring traffic with them. At worst, there's maybe some crime, there might be a traffic accident, there may be a need for emergency services, and all of those things cost the city and tax all the resources that they have available to them. I think we need to try and give cities better tools to manage their situations. I'm working on a bill now. I believe everybody on the committee here is well aware of a SMART plan, where we would be able to give cities like Scranton, a two-way city, over $1.5 million to the city of Pottsville, which I represent. And a city like Scranton would generate about $3.75 million for 3 years under the SMART plan, which is modernizing the sales tax. It hasn't changed for a number of years, since 1971. So I understand your frustration, and I'm sure that the people who are managing the city council, and all the people charged with that duty are very frustrated as well. I think we're pressing everybody into a box here because we're not giving them the tools to be successful. So I'd just like to throw that out so that the people here are aware of my plan. Thank you. Sure.
Representative Pshinski.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Mr. Sbraglia, for your testimony. We certainly sympathize with you, and you echo the concerns of people all over this Commonwealth. You know, when things are good and money was flowing at a normal rate, most folks just went along because they didn't even realize that there was problems. It's kind of like a lake that has a water line, and you never see the stumps until it goes below that water line. You've identified, and Representative Murphy certainly has identified a particularly unique problem here in Scranton, whereby the system appears to be so complicated, it's difficult to even comprehend, let alone begin to try to improve it. This also reminds me of another piece of legislation that we're considering in dealing with tow trucks and tow truck operators, where if your car gets towed, the cost of the fees in order to get it out of that facility is so huge that depending on the value of your vehicle, sometimes they end up just leaving their vehicle there and saying, the heck with this. So I think that because of the nature of our present economic state on a global level, state level, and now it's affecting every local community, there's going to be an opportunity for all of us to try to make it better, to review it, identify what needs to be changed, and make a sincere attempt to indeed do that. I'd like to thank you again for your testimony today, and certainly we'll take everything into consideration. Thank you.
Representative Wanzak.
I think you.
I do have a question for you, Mrs. Fragman.
Sure.
Thank you for bringing this, to our attention, just, to this. What I would ask is, on your opinion, which way do you think it should be done? Obviously, as you heard, there was always a penalty beforehand. If somebody's late on their taxes to pay, do you believe there should be a penalty? Should there not be a penalty? I mean, there obviously is a problem. I'm just trying to figure out what is the best way.
Well, you got to realize you're on a fast track. She explained it to you very well. Nancy explained it to you how it was done the old way. They had 2 or 3 years to pay their taxes. You're not talking about that today. You're on a real fast track. If you're late by the month and it goes delinquent, all them fines can be imposed. That is the whole idea coming before you, asking to split it. As a taxpayer, I have to make up the difference. As a taxpayer of Scranton. I mean, if the school board don't have the proper money, they're gonna raise my school tax. I know this. But what is better? To pay a little more to the school, or to see a lot of school children thrown out of their homes? That's what you have to see there. It's the bottom penalty, that penalty you got before you, that's the culprit. The other penalties are not that bad, because you were only talking about a tax of $400 or $500 on a home. My home is assessed at $11,000 because well, you can see why it's assessed at $11,000. I bought it in the old days, okay? My taxes are not that high, and we're not going to get an assessment in the near future, so I'll probably die at that rate. But that ain't the problem. The problem is people in Scranton. The more people you throw out of Scranton, the greater burden comes to the taxpayers that stay in Scranton.
Sure, I understand that, but what we're trying to get at here is Representative Murphy has introduced an idea to try to solve a solution to a problem in the city of Scranton. And what I'm asking for you is, on your opinion, I mean, regardless of whether it's NCCC charging 25% or the way it was done past, taking 3 years to get the money, it was still about 22% you were paying. What I'm asking is, does the Scranton Taxpayer Association or the Lackawanna Taxpayer Association have a plan or a solution that would be better, that would also meet the needs of the city residents?
Well, as you know, the needs of the city residents change dramatically with each mayor that comes into power, okay? If you had looked at the budgets from 8 years ago when when the new mayor, Ware Doherty was in power,
Excuse
to
me,
what it is now.
Mr. Spragley and pardon me, Representative Wanzak, I just think there's something's being missed here, with regards to the collection of the taxes. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands it's not one or the other. It's not the implementation of a 10% penalty by the city for delinquent property taxes plus an additional 0.5% of whatever that tax obligation that became delinquent is. It's the 10% imposed by the city. It's the 0.5% each month that property tax is delinquent up to 100% of the obligation, plus the 25% add-on from the collection agency. So it's not a one or the other situation. It's the collection agency on top. So it's the proverbial double whammy. It's not one or the other.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. I was under the impression that that's how it got changed, so thank you for clarifying that. But I guess my point then, it goes from either 22% to 47% is what it is, but that's still a hefty fee. I mean, if you're talking about $1,000, you're still talking about $220, or you're talking about $470.
No, you're talking about thousands more.
But if your bill's $1,000 and it's costing you 22% more, you're talking about $220 more, or $470. But I'm talking, there's also going to be a cost on the city as well by not having the revenues come in as they talk about. So I guess what we're trying to figure out here is what is the best possible solution to go with it. And I'm not sure what that answer is. And I'm hoping that, you know, the city council and the mayor can come up with that solution. If not, I know Representative Murphy has introduced an idea and he's trying to get comment from that. And that's why I asked your opinion on specifically if we should go, if you think it would be wise just to go back to the old way, or is there a better way that you see maybe that we're not aware of?
There's no way to go back. I gave you contracts. How are you going to nullify them contracts? You would have to go and come on law and nullify contracts. They're all on contracts. I had given you contracts on NCC. You have the contracts there, and you also have it with the contracts that were given to the Scranton Redevelopment Authority. I gave you all the contracts there. They're all renewable. If you don't renew them on a certain date, they're all renewable. You cannot go back. You got to say, should we split the taxes so people have the option to pay the city tax if they don't have the money available for the school tax, which are about 3 times more than the city tax? That is the problem before you. Rhetoric for this or that doesn't matter. It's how it affects the people. If you want people to lose their homes, you leave it stand like it is. If you want people, because they're going to put the assessment against the homes no matter what. If them people can't pay their school tax, they're going to be assessed, okay? But at least if they pay their city tax, that cuts the all these fines that we're talking about, $4,000 add-ons. That would take them away, and they have a chance of keeping their home. And that's the whole idea. The taxpayers talked about this. We brought it up before council long ago on this, and the reason why is simple. To avoid this huge penalty that's tacked on to the taxes.
Mr. Sprague, if you have another question, Jim, I just wanted to, I'm kind of thinking aloud, but I want this to be more conversational. I certainly don't want it to be confrontational, but I want it to be conversational because I think together we can come up with a solution and working together. That's why we're here. But I think you just said something that was very poignant. If those penalties, fees, in addition to those charged by the city, the 10% and the 0.5% per month, if the additional fees that would bring that penalty through the collection agency up the additional 45, 47, 48%, whatever that figure happens to be, I believe what you just said would be part of the solution, in that those additional penalties, interest, and fees wouldn't be going to NCC, they'd be going to the Scranton School Board for tax payment, to fulfill that tax obligation. So instead of being so far behind the 8 ball with their city property taxes that had become delinquent, and having all those penalties, interest, and fees attached, the proverbial double whammy by the city's interest and fees and the collection agency's interest and fees. If you take out the collection agency's interest and fees, those dollars could be paid to the school district to take care of that obligation. That was just something that I was kind of thinking aloud and listening as you were giving
No, in my statement I said when people want to stay in their homes in Scranton. I lived here all my life, 71 years, okay? The only time I ever left when I went to the military, okay? And then I came back. This is my home. This has always been my home. I was always willing to pay the high taxes of the city of Scranton. And the Scranton taxes were high, always high. We're not talking about just now, we're talking about wage tax and all other taxes. The reason we paid them taxes is to keep our mothers and grandmothers in their homes. Because by us paying more because we were young and working, the money flowed. But for some reason now, it's not flowing. I don't know exactly why. You would have to, if you really wanted to get into a whole picture, you would have to go back to the budgets and see why the city needs all these things. You can't just say it's there because we need it. You could create these problems, and the city has created most of the problems we have now. And it's as simple as that. They did create the problems. Now they're looking for out-of-the-box solutions, but these solutions are hurting the people of Scranton, really hurting them. And I'm sorry for them. And I don't wish to be confrontation. I just love the city and the people in the city. And will stand by and defend them till I die, like I went to the military. I always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And that's all I can say.
Yeah. I certainly didn't mean to insinuate in any way that you're confrontational, because that's never been my experience. That hasn't been my experience in, while I previously served on Scranton City Council. It's never been my experience when I've attended meetings through the Lackawanna County Taxpayers Association. You've always conducted yourself as a gentleman, and I didn't mean to insinuate that whatsoever. But I appreciate your testimony. It's invaluable for my colleagues to hear exactly what's going on from a Scranton city taxpayer, from someone who represents the Lackawanna County Taxpayers Association, and from someone who loves the city of Scranton to such a degree that you get involved in these organizations, that you attend your council meetings, that you're presenting testimony here today before these state legislators and before the Policy and Planning Committee. So I thank you very much for your testimony, and if none of my colleagues have any other questions, we'll move forward and call on the next testifier.
And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak out on this issue.
You're quite welcome, Andy. Before we call up our next testifier, there was a comment mentioned in testimony earlier that I just wanted to clarify, and I wanted to, I hadn't done it in the past, but I wanted to thank the University of Scranton for hosting this public hearing here today. It's a tremendous facility. It's you know, that's where, you know, I bleed, you know, royal blue. I played baseball here at the University of Scranton. I went to school here at the University of Scranton, and I love the facility. And there was a comment made about some nonprofits not paying any in-lieu taxes whatsoever. The city of Scranton does budget $100,000 a year for the in lieu of taxes from the University of Scranton. So there are contributions made to this community, not only through in lieu of taxes, but in many ways by the University of Scranton. I wanted to acknowledge that, and if there were some testimony that, you know, is just a little bit inaccurate, you know, none of us are perfect, but I want to be fair to everyone here. So I want to make sure that we set the record straight. Our next testifier is Ron Kolodziejski. Ron Kolodziejski is with the Tax Claim Bureau from the county. He had an emergency. He wasn't able to make it here today. I spoke to him on this issue. It's a very important issue. I will tell you through our conversation that his primary concern was what I had mentioned earlier during this hearing, is that when those quarterly payments are made and taxpayers think their complete tax obligation has been met, it hasn't. They end up contacting those taxpayers because those quarterly payment coupons on the bottom of your payment, they only satisfy your Scranton property tax and your school property tax. And there are many, many people, and it's not only senior citizens who are confused. And we do have many senior citizens here in the city of Scranton. And that's why we want to simplify this process and make it more clear. But it's not only senior citizens that have difficulty trying to figure out this current tax bill. It's young professionals, it's everyone. So that's why we're having this hearing today. Unfortunately, Ron wasn't able to make it, but we do have our new single tax office, city tax collector, Bill Courtright. And I would also like to congratulate Mr. Courtright on recently being elected as tax collector for the city of Scranton. He's a former city council member, former city council vice president, and I would like to congratulate him. I'd also like to share with my colleagues that as Mr. Courtright is transitioning into the single tax office, he's trying to do everything he can to make sure that these taxes are collected. He's a compassionate man. He wants to make sure he does a good job. But in this transition, it takes some time. None of us learn things overnight. It takes some time. He has some employees that have worked diligently for the single tax office for decades. And they have a lot of hands-on experience in this tax collection process through working for the single tax office for decades. And at any point, if we have any questions that Mr. Courtright, due to being new on the job, if he would like to refer to any questions to any of the employees that work for him and have that experience, then I want to make that available to you. And once again, thank you for being here, Mr. Courtright.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As Representative Murphy said, I've only been on a job a little over 3 weeks, but I did serve 6 years on city council. One of the things that we're looking at, and I hope in the next week or two that maybe we could help solve part of the problem, is we can't collect the taxes at the single tax office through credit card. And there's people like Mr. Sparaglia maybe that are only paying $700 in property taxes. And there's credit card companies out there now that, you know, they can come in, if they pay their taxes by credit card, some credit card companies will allow them 1 year of free interest. So maybe they wouldn't have to go delinquent. So we're actively pursuing, looking at being able to pay the bills through credit card, and where the credit card company wouldn't charge us the interest rate, the single tax office, it would be to the individual. So that, we're looking at that. I hope within the next week or two, we have a representative from one of the companies in to speak to us. I would like to say that whatever the three taxing bodies agree upon, and State Representative Mr. Murphy and you gentlemen vote on, that my office will cooperate fully and will do our very best to carry out whatever it is that you decide. I think that one of the questions maybe Representative Prusinski said was about percentages, and I don't know if that question really got answered the way that you wanted it answered. I think the answer to that is 87% of the people are paying are current, and then you would have 13% to go delinquent. I don't know, is that the answer that you were looking for?
Is that been?
That's this past year.
How about
That information I don't have with me right now, but I could certainly get it for you if you'd like. The other thing was, and I'm not going to speak for Mrs. Craig, but I think one of the things that we're looking at when we're talking about the fees and penalties charged by the credit agency is that when it was the city of Scranton collecting it, that 22% or 100% or 25% was going into the city's coffers. And now that's not happening. I believe there was 2 employees at the time that did it. Am I correct, Mrs. Craig? Because you still one employee that was collecting it. Why they changed, I don't know. And I don't know if going back would be the answer, but I think it would certainly be something we should explore. Because my 6 years on council, we did get several complaints about the collection agency. Some complaints were to the point that the letters that were being sent out were pretty almost threatening, I would say. And I went to the collection agency and I spoke to them and I asked them to soften up the letter, and they told me if they softened up the letter that they wouldn't collect as many taxes. I said, well, then we won't have to collect as many taxes. Because I had people, all the senior citizens, crying to me on the phone. They're afraid. And in the next year, they called me in and showed me where maybe we didn't collect quite as much, but my argument was this, in the first years, they collect the cream of the crop. Every year afterwards, it gets more difficult to collect. So I don't think the softening of the letter was a problem. It appears to me that what I've heard here today, there's more concern with the collection agency process than there is with the actual bill itself. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's what you gentlemen are hearing. And I think that needs to be addressed. And if changing the bill in any way, shape, or form would help, I would certainly do everything I could to accommodate the city, the school district, and the county. If you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them. I don't know if I could, as I said, only being here a short period of time, but if there's anyone up there that does have a question for me, I'd certainly try to answer it for you.
Representative Pshinsky?
First on the tower, thank you. It's because I'm close. Scott, do you want to take this one? I was wondering, you know, there's a difference between someone who's been a lifelong resident and who's paid their taxes on time and in full. And because of a situation, whether it be a health problem or loss of job, now are finding difficulty in paying their taxes. Does the history of the taxpayer have anything to do with the collection? Is that a consideration at all?
I don't believe so. I mean, I guess NCC would be the one to answer that question, but I don't think it has any bearing at all.
Okay, and that's too bad. And we certainly understand they have a job to do and would like them to do it because obviously all of us that pay our obligations, we expect everyone to do the same thing. I'm suggesting that that be considered. You know, I want to put that in testimony because there's a difference from somebody who's a fly-by-nighter who comes in and takes advantage of a city and all the services and doesn't pay their fair share, as opposed to someone who's contributed to the city for years.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Galloway?
Thank you, Representative Murphy. First, I'd like to thank whoever is responsible for allowing us to be here today. I apologize, I really don't know. This is an excellent center, beautiful facility, and a great venue. I'd also like to talk just a little bit about Representative Murphy. I'd like to thank him for asking us to come up here today and talk to you about this issue. In his short time, Representative Murphy has shown himself to be an advocate for not only the city of Scranton, but the people of his district, and I think this is a good example of it. He's particularly in tune with specific needs that are addressing the people in his district right now, and I think this is a very, very good example of it. I have a couple questions, and I don't think, I'm sorry, your name is Mr. Court, right?
Yes, Bill.
Bill. My first question is, this is all the result of an ordinance that was passed in 2007, correct?
Well, I think you're referring to the fees that were imposed?
Correct.
Yeah.
And
I voted against that, by the way.
And these fees brought about the idea of separating out the tax bills, and that's how we came to House Bill.
I don't know if that's where the idea was born from, but it certainly, if it wasn't, pushed it along.
So my question then is there anyone here today who advocated, or is an advocate of not going forward with House Bill 1942? Is there someone here who can give the case against?
Excuse me, Mr. Galloway, I think we're going to hear some testimony.
Okay.
And
That's
and
fine.
I had, through, you know, no fault of mine, an oversight of mine, Craig Sunday, who's the business administrator for the Scranton School District, was going to testify before Mr. Courtwright.
Okay.
But he will be testifying, he will present testimony as to possible solutions and his take on how this would impact the Scranton School District. So I think in short order, we will have
I
someone
appreciate that.
that
I was
that
looking
has.
for him to come up right now. I guess my second question then would be, is this a matter of just reversing an ordinance? I mean, is there, I apologize for not asking Ms. Evans this when she was up here, but has the will of the council changed? Is there opinion on the council, majority opinion of the council now, that perhaps a bill coming out of Harrisburg is not necessary if the council itself wanted to reverse this ordinance?
If the ordinance referring to those fees, those several 13 or 17 fees that they were, that, yes, that could be reversed by the Scranton City Council. When I sat there, it passed through 3 to 2. I was not for it. And then I believe it was brought up one time more by Mrs. Evans to try to repeal it, and once again, we lost 3-2. So that particular part, yes, I believe, I don't want to speak on council's behalf, I'm no longer there, but I believe that they could, unless there's a contract in place for that, I'm not quite sure. What the length of time of the contract would be even.
So then the obvious question would be, if there was a will to rescind this ordinance or reverse this ordinance, how would it impact this bill? I understand then it would come down to the question of the pros and cons of dividing out these bills, and I look forward to the testimony. But again, I think this is debate that's needed. You know, these are the things that you've got to get on the table. And finally, I'd like to thank all the speakers who have come here today and everybody who's come out today who want to be a part of this. And again, Representative Murphy has just been someone who has been in your corner. He's out there fighting for you, and I appreciate the opportunity to come to Scranton today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Galloway. I believe we have a few more questions.
Sure.
Representative Santoni?
Thank you, Kevin, and Kevin does a terrific job for you guys up here. I want to reiterate what Representative Galloway said. Let me try to get this clear in my mind. The bills are combined, and they go out. When do they go out? March?
It'll be going out probably this weekend.
So they're all combined, and they go out. They're going out in February. You have a discount period.
Discount period will be the end of February.
Okay, then a base period, and then a delinquent period. At what point do you turn it over to the collection agency?
We will only collect the current year.
So as soon as it goes delinquent, which is maybe what, 4 months?
We would send it to the city's part. After it goes to the city, and then the school and the county would go to the tax assessor's office. Am I correct in that? December 31st of the year.
December 31st, all delinquent taxes go to this third party.
Well,
Okay.
they would go to the city, cities would go to the city, the school district and the county would go to the county.
Okay. You used to be on council and you voted no. So I don't know, maybe that was your platform that you used when you got elected. What's the makeup of city council right now? Is it, are the votes on council to overturn this ordinance?
I believe Mrs. Evans would have the votes on council to do as she pleases.
Would that be preferable over having legislation passed in Harrisburg?
I'm not going to speak for Mrs. Evans on that one.
Well, I'm not saying
I
you won't do it or
think-
you can't do it. I'm just saying it would be, I don't know if easy is the right word, maybe quicker.
I think-
Easier to do it locally than to have us pass a bill that, I hesitate to dip into local political decisions, but we've done it. I'm not saying we won't do it in Harrisburg, and I'm certainly speaking for myself here. But it's more challenging and takes longer to do it at the state level than it would be to do it locally. That's just my comment.
I think we have two separate issues. I think the one issue is any collection agency, but it happens to be NCC. And I think that's an issue, and I think that if council chooses, they could repeal that ordinance and do away with all those fees. I think the other issue is that possibly Mr. Murphy's legislation is that if you were to separate the bills and you couldn't afford to pay the three, you would pay the cities, because if you didn't, boom, it's going to go to the collection agency and you're going to get whacked, right? Sorry to be so blunt, all right? But that's what I think it is. So do I think repealing it would help? Yeah. I don't know if there would be a need or not a need to follow through with this legislation if they were to repeal that. Maybe that's something that would needed to be discussed amongst the three taxing bodies.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Representative Santoni. And I would just like to add some comments to the question that you posed to Mr. Courtwright, and that is, we do have two separate issues here. The penalty phase, when the taxes go delinquent for the city, those delinquent taxes go to the collection agency we're referring to as NCC here today. The other two taxing entities, the Scranton City school tax and the county tax, they go to the county afterwards. So they're separated at that point once they become delinquent. But the confusion exists because these bills, the bill as it currently exists, as it's currently sent out, has all three tax obligations listed and broken down on one form. There's a stub at the bottom, four quarterly payment stubs at the bottom of that tax bill. If you were to make quarterly payments and send them into the single tax office, that would only fulfill your tax obligation to the city, to the school district, and the county wouldn't get their taxes. You have to pay them separately. So it's very confusing, and when a senior citizen, when someone looks at this bill, if these tax bills were separated, and if they were put into the same envelope, you could identify what your city tax obligation is, and it's much smaller than what your Scranton, your school tax would be. So I would think that people would pay that first. Probably save money by that being paid off first. We would save money because we would be able to pay off our tax anticipation notes as a city quicker and save money on the back end through all the interest that we would be paying on those huge loans. The monies, as Mr. Sparaglia from the Lackawanna County Taxpayers Association had mentioned earlier, the additional penalties and fees that are associated with the collection agency, in addition to the 10% penalty for being delinquent and a 0.5% each month on the amount of that delinquency, the savings by not having the additional charge from the collection agency would go possibly towards satisfying your Scranton school district bill or your county tax bill. But it would make it simpler, and it would be crystal clear exactly what your tax obligation is to each entity.
If I may say one thing, if in fact the bill is going to be changed, I think one thing that we need to consider is there are people, myself one of them, that I like to pay all three by the end of February so that I can get the discount. So if in fact we're going to change the bill, I think we need to leave that option on there to allow, to allow the people to pay all three at one time and get the total discount. So if we're gonna craft a new bill, I'd hope everybody would just try to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, we appreciate any input that we get because we're trying to work here together as state representatives with local government, with local elected officials, because we don't have all the answers. And because this is a unique situation to Scranton, we wanted to bring this policy committee hearing here so we can listen, get some input, and find out if together we can find a solution to this confusing problem. Are there any other questions? Representative Galloway, and then Representative
Just
Sterling.
a quick question about the process, tax collection. I apologize, I'm not up on the process for tax collection for this particular city, but when is for example, all three are together in one bill. Have they always been that way?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Now, when is for instance, when is your fiscal year for your school district? Does it run July to July? Does it
I believe the
December
school
to
district is
December?
different than the city, isn't that, Mr. Sunday?
We are, us in Pittsburgh, are the two school districts that operate on a calendar year
Okay.
because of the city structure.
Okay, so you're asking your citizens to pay for school taxes in March,
Correct.
yet your fiscal calendar runs through the end of the year, or they?
Correct.
It seems a little odd. For instance, where I live, we have two separate tax bills. We have a school tax bill that comes due around June, July. We run on July calendar, and it comes due right before their budget's passed in July. As opposed to the city, our township, what we call township and county taxes, which are due in March, and they are separated out, and that allows people. Of course, your school taxes are much higher, but it also allows them to pay them much closer to when the bill is actually due and paid for by the school district. So my question is, if if the bill isn't due, but if the school district doesn't have to come up with the money to the end of the year, why are they asking people to pay for it in March?
Well, Representative Galloway, I appreciate your question, and Mr. Sunday will be testifying after Mr. Courtwright, and it's very important that the people that are watching on TV fully understand the question that you're asking, and maybe more importantly, the response that Mr. Sunday's going to provide to the committee here. So when Mr. Sunday comes up, hopefully we'll be able to get a follow-up to be able to ask that question, and he had been responding to your questions, but if he responds as he's testifying into the microphone, and everyone at home can understand exactly why the school district collects taxes and assesses them the way they do. So we'll just hold off on that one, and I appreciate your patience, Representative Galloway.
Mr. Murphy, can I say one thing? I didn't know if it was appropriate to talk about it now or not, but I'm going to give it a shot. What I'd like to look at, and I don't know the legality of it, is that when the real estate taxes, after the year is up and we send them over, I think an option might be letting them stay in our office and let us collect them. We have a full staff there, and I think it would be able to do a good job at it, and then there would be no need for it to go anywhere else. But I don't know the legality of that, and I don't know how the powers that be would feel about that, but I think that's an option.
Representative Pshinski?
You say you have the staff?
Yes.
You have the materials needed, the equipment?
I believe so, yes.
How many people do you have on staff?
There's 23 unionized employees and 3 non-union employees.
And what do you do now?
We collect the wage tax, the business privilege and mercantile tax, the local service tax, and the real estate tax for the city of Scranton, Scranton School District, and Lackawanna County.
Thank you very much.
If there are no other questions, well, excuse me, our chairman, Representative Sturla has a question.
I get no respect. I want to follow up a little bit on Representative Santoni's questions about how this process works, because in my town, I get, the city sends out my tax bill, the county sends out their tax bill, the school district sends out their tax bill. They've been gracious enough to coordinate so that not all of them come due at the same time. So the 1 month I pay, because I pay on quarterly or third or that kind of thing. So the 1 month, my third of my city tax is due, the next month a third of my school tax is due, the next month my full county tax is due, the next month a third of my, and so for 8 of the 12 months out of the year I end up having a tax bill, but I can spread it out a little bit over that year's time.
I have an example that I can read off to you.
Okay, sure, yeah, if you could.
This is a tax bill from 2009, and if they paid within the grace period at that time for the county part, this is if they paid the county portion would be $58.50 that this individual in the grace period. They would combine that with the city and the school tax, and that would be $304.96. So if they paid the $58.50 and the $304.96, their bill would be paid for the year. Okay.
So and they can pay that, and so this part I don't understand, because Representative Murphy says.
That's a discounted period.
But but their county tax is not paid.
No, that's the county tax also.
That pays the county tax also.
Right. Now, if they decide that they can't afford it by then we can, they can move for the county into April 30th on this particular bill, and it would go up slightly. The 58 would go to 58.75, and the 304 would go to 306, and so on and so forth. What Mr. Murphy was talking about was on the bottom of the thing. There's four individual quarterly payments, and those payments are just for the school district and the city of Scranton. Okay. That's not the county.
So is this, is that part of it simply that whoever's printing out the bill is not making it clear that, can those coupons include the county tax?
The county doesn't want you to pay it. The county wants you to pay it in one.
To them. Can there
In one-
be a?
No, not two of them, in one lump, so they're not going
Okay.
to allow you to pay
Can
quarterly.
the county have a separate coupon that goes on there so that people understand that, you know, I mean, I'm just looking at it from a taxpayer standpoint. You say, you know, I'm gonna pay, you know, the first tax payment, that no matter who makes, whether you do it quarterly, whether you do it in one lump sum, can the county portion be included in that first?
If the county chose to put a, you know, a quarterly payment in, we would be happy to mail it out for them.
But even if it wasn't a quarterly payment, if you said that first coupon has the full county tax bill plus a quarter of my payment for my school and city taxes, the next one just has a quarter of my school and city taxes, the next one has a quarter, I mean, is there any way it can simplify it so that the taxpayer says, gee, I can't figure out why I gotta pay more that first quarter, but it would be delineated that you're paying all of your.
Sure, you could do whatever you choose, and that's why I say whatever the three taxing bodies would like to do, along with Mr. Murphy.
So at the local level, that clarity could be, you could solve that portion.
That's a possibility, what
Okay,
you're saying.
all right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be nice, I mean, we can see some of that stuff. So, now, if I'm a taxpayer and I understand, if I get past that clarity issue and I understand, then I pay my county tax aside from those coupons, and then I look at my coupons and I say, okay, I'm gonna pay my first quarter, I'm gonna pay my second quarter, I'm gonna pay my third quarter, I get to the fourth quarter, and I get sick, and I lose my job, and I don't pay my fourth quarter. Am I delinquent on my city and my school district taxes at that point?
The way it stands now, yes.
Okay. And so if I'm delinquent on my city and my school taxes at that point in time, my city tax would be a quarter of the $58?
No, the city and the school, no,
Oh,
no,
the city and
$58,000 is
the
the county.
county.
It's
The city and the school combined is 300.
304.96
Okay.
in the discounted period.
Okay, so, you know, 100 and, what is it? Not even that. $75 is a quarter of that.
Here, here's the payment here, right here is $78.28.
Okay, $78. So I pay all of my taxes except $78 of my taxes. At that point in time,
You're delinquent.
I'm delinquent, and I'm on the hook to the county or the city, I paid my county, I'm on the hook to the school district for some taxes, but I'm on the hook to the city for about $15, and I'm delinquent, and I get $2,300 worth of penalties assessed to me? I mean, is that how it works?
I don't know if it would be $2,300.
All right.
I mean, you would have to find, I think, and I don't know if this is a possibility, maybe something you would be driving at is, and I don't think the county would go along with it, is if you allowed, if the city, the county, and the school together could be paid quarterly, I don't know if that's acceptable to them.
But even if it's not,
I
you
need to
can
do
do that.
whatever they tell me to do.
Yeah, I mean, even if that can be clarified on that bill so that that's understandable, I'm just trying to figure out that if I get to that last quarter and as a result of this, I owe $15 in taxes to the city.
That $15 is gonna go to NCC and you're gonna get charged.
And I'm gonna get charged, and
I don't know the dollar amount.
but I'm gonna start hitting these 23 different penalties
Absolutely,
and,
absolutely.
yeah, okay, now I understand why people are outraged.
Yeah, and that's why I forget which representative brought it up and asked about if we did away with the ordinance that allowed those 23, that would certainly help.
Yeah, I mean, I understand if somebody's a deadbeat and they just don't wanna pay, and they just don't wanna pay.
Right,
You know, I'm more than willing to go after people like that.
Absolutely, I think we all are, yeah. I think that the people are outraged at the fact that they have to pay these 23 different penalties and fines. I think one on there, if you take a look on there, you know, it's been quite a while since I voted on it, but I believe one on there was $100 and some for a lawyer's letter. That would be a form letter. That really irritates me. I mean, you know, it's a form letter that goes out to everybody. It's $100 and some and makes people mad.
Yeah. One final comment I'll make, and this is just because Representative Sipe was pitching his smart plan, and so I'm gonna. In the testimony that was given for Janet Evans early on, it talked about the fact that there's more than 25% tax exempt properties in the city of Scranton. And the city I live in, the city of Lancaster, has the exact same situation. One of the things that I'm doing right now is putting together legislation that would allow for a county tax that would be strictly to do payment in lieu of taxes to municipalities that have tax exempt properties. So if my municipality has 2% of its properties tax exempt, my municipality would get reimbursed for that. If mine has 25%, it would get reimbursed for that. But it would be spread among the entire county citizenry who all use those tax exempt properties, because I don't think there's any tax exempt property that's just used by the people that live in that particular municipality. So it understands that there's a community of interest, that county, and those people in there will all help share that burden of that, which one would help alleviate a lot of the problems I think you have in Scranton, as well as other third-class cities, second-class cities throughout the state. So we're working on trying to put that together. That doesn't solve this exact problem, but it does help. It addresses the issue that we're all facing in cities, is how do we get by to the next year? So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Bill. If there are no further questions.
If you wouldn't mind, if you could excuse me, myself and my staff, it is tax season, we need to get back, and I'm working on some for the Treasury Department, so I'm not trying to be ignorant, but we're gonna have to leave, if that's okay with you. I certainly want to hear Mr. Sunday's testimony. This, I'm assuming, is gonna be played on Channel 61 or
Yes.
PCN, what would this be on?
Yes, it'll be played. It's also being recorded, so we'll be able to provide you with the DVD, and we'll be able to watch it. But I also want to let my colleagues know that we're going to get a copy of a tax bill, so that we all have a copy before us. So
Oh, yeah.
So as Mr. Sunday's giving his testimony, he'll be able to look at it and gain a better understanding of exactly how it's laid out and what we're referring to when we talk about the quarterly coupons and the county payment, because it's a bit confusing for everyone, and we're going to take a close look at that.
It'll be a lot easier if they're actually looking at it.
So if you could just stay long enough for us to make some photocopies of what you have before.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright.
Thank you, appreciate it.
At this time, I'll call up our next testifier, Mr. Greg Sunday. He's the business administrator with the Scranton School District. Once again, Mr. Sunday, I apologize for the oversight earlier. I know you have a tight schedule, and you made every effort to get here to testify today, and I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. First and foremost, I do want to say, as in response to Representative Galloway's comments, that is there anyone that opposes this? Just for the record, the Scranton School District has concerns with it and is appreciative of providing testimony today regarding this. But I'd like to first introduce myself. I am Greg Sunday. I am currently the Deputy Superintendent for Finance for the Scranton School District. I've been employed by the school district for the past 26 years. I am a Scranton resident. I have been born and raised here, and my family currently still resides here. I have a young son that will graduate this year. Hopefully, after he attends college, will choose to relocate back to here where his family roots are. So I personally am concerned about the city of Scranton and the area. With that being said, I have some remarks for testimony today that I'd like to read, and then upon conclusion, I would be willing to answer any questions that the representatives have. I've been requested by Representative Murphy's office to testify, offer testimony and comment to the proposed House Bill 1942, which would require second-class cities, particularly Scranton, to offer installment payment options for real estate taxes and installment payments for fees and taxes on delinquent properties should they become delinquent. House Bill 1942 that is being discussed today is an attempt, as I understand it, to amend Act 39 of 1935, which governs the assessment, levy, and collections of property taxes in the second-class A cities, which Scranton currently is. The proposed House Bill 1492 would require separate tax bills by the county, city, and school district, and also provide residents to pay delinquent tax fees in installment payments. The rationale for this is to eliminate taxpayer confusion, reduce cost to the taxpayer. In preparing to offer comment and testimony on this proposal, I have reviewed my own personal tax document, which I have here, and have spoken to various people who have been residents, property owners, including family members who tend to be my biggest critic, over the last 70 years regarding tax bills that are currently being used and that those have been used in the past. In regards to House Bill 1942 attempts to be taxpayer friendly, I would like to address what is currently in place regarding taxpayer billing and payments. As you are all aware, with the passage of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Act 1, Special Session of 2006, more commonly referred as the Taxpayer Relief Act, it mandates that all school districts in the Commonwealth provide for installment payments for real estate tax. In the 2009 tax year, the school district's real estate taxes were offered the option of installment payments. Also, the City of Scranton real estate taxes were included in the installment payment plan that was clearly defined on the tax bill, of which it currently states on the top. This allows the city residents to pay both the city and the school district tax in installment payments from the same bill. For the current year, 2010, the estimated cost of the printing of those tax bills that is shared by the three entities is approximately $24,000. That does not include postage. If these three taxing bodies share equally in the cost, if they were to be separate, obviously there would be increased cost. What those increased costs is arbitrary, because some could say it could double, it could be less than what it is. But potentially, that if that was the case, those costs in turn would have to be passed on to somebody, which would then go back to the taxpayer. The second requirement of the proposed House Bill 1942 would require installment payments for large fines and fees for delinquent real estate taxes. The collection of delinquent taxes for the Scranton School District is collected by the Lackawanna County Tax Claim Bureau. Under the direction of Mr. Ron Koljeski, the County Tax Claim Bureau, they collect the delinquent real estate taxes on behalf of the Scranton School District. And they also collect delinquent taxes for other municipalities and school districts in Lackawanna County, with the exception of the City of Scranton. The County Tax Claim Bureau, is not a private collection agency. They're a governmental agency. The interest and penalty that are calculated on the delinquent properties are set by statute and not at the discretion of the county. The interest and penalty applied by the Tax Claim Bureau is consistent. There are no other fees. Also, the County Tax Claim Bureau does offer installment payments for delinquent real estate taxes for all property that is the homeowner's primary residential property. The proposed House Bill 1942 that is under consideration at this time, the Scranton School District currently complies with its requirements for installment payments for both current taxes and delinquent real estate taxes. This has been accomplished in a manner that has been in place for well over 30 years and at the least possible cost to the individual taxpayer. To include the Scranton School District in this bill would be counterproductive to the policies and practices that have been in place and working properly for the past 26 years that I have been working with the Scranton School District. In closing, if the intent of this proposed bill is to save the taxpayer money, then this legislation should be redesigned and required to include all taxing bodies participating in an open discussion and dialogue for development of a proposal that is both fair and equitable to the taxpayer as well as the taxing body. Also, there should be some consideration given to the potentially require this proposed bill to mandate that the County Tax Claim Bureau collect delinquent taxes on behalf of the city of Scranton. Therefore, it would be uniform across the county, not a private collection agency. This would allow, as I stated earlier, installment payments in a uniform manner that is currently being done for all other county municipalities and school districts at this time. On behalf of the Scranton School District, I would be willing to work with Representative Murphy's office and this panel on this matter to discuss any open dialogue in providing relief to both the taxpayer and also at the least cost to the government entity. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to provide you with testimony and comment on this bill today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sunday. I appreciate that. I appreciate your willingness to testify here today. I appreciate your willingness to work together with myself, my office staff, and with the other taxing entities, you know, in the best interest of the taxpayer. As you said, we don't want to create any additional expense. We don't want to create any additional burden on the taxpayer, but we want to try to provide tax collection and for services that we so dearly need. But we want to do it in the most efficient, effective manner, and I applaud you for coming here and for, you know, being willing to partake in a discussion that will meet that end.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
You're quite welcome. Are there any questions? Representative Wansack?
Thank you, Mr. Sunday, for coming. You said you're in the role as a school administrator for 7 years?
26.
26 years, okay. So you were, before this ordinance came in, you were collecting the school district taxes,
The
school district's taxes, right?
Correct. The Scranton City Single Tax Office was collecting it collects the current real estate tax, and then on December 31st of the year, if taxes are not paid, they go to the County Tax Claim Bureau.
Okay. Now, I think Mr. Courtwright told us it was about 87% is current people paid their taxes.
Correct.
And 13% don't. Was there, before this ordinance, and this is what I'm just trying to figure out, before this ordinance, was there a bigger number of delinquencies?
Representative Wansack, I would have to say no. I don't believe that. Although I don't know the answer. I could get those and supply you with those figures. But since we've used the County Tax Claim Bureau, we seem to have no issues or problems with the delinquent collections.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you. My colleague from Bucks County, Representative Galloway, would like to follow up on the line of questioning that was initiated earlier, but due to there being no microphones in the audience, we wanted to make sure that those that are watching at home could see the discourse between you and not miss anything. So with that, Representative Galloway, if you have some questions.
Thank you, Representative. First of all, thank you very much for coming here today. It's important to get all sides of this issue and get it out and discuss this issue. That's the point of this hearing. I am a former member of the Pennsbury School District. I'm the board of directors, so I understand where you're coming from. But I'd like to get to the root. I'd like to really get to the root of what your objection is. Because after listening to your testimony, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little confused as to what exactly the objection is. A couple quick questions. This single bill, is it a choice? Is it an ordinance? Is it, did this agency just, or when did it start? Is it a choice? Is it something you can change right now?
My personal opinion, I believe that if the three entities got together to redesign the bill, yes, it can be. There is no, there is.
Redesign the bill or the ordinance?
Maybe I misunderstand your question. Is it?
Right now, is there an opportunity, is there some reason why you can't go to three separate bills? Is there some law, is there some ordinance that is preventing?
Not to my knowledge.
So it's a choice. Somebody has chosen to do it in a single way, and they can choose to do it a different way, correct? Thank you.
Yes.
You mentioned cost, which seemed to be your big objective, which is that costs are currently shared equally.
Correct.
That was your thrust, which seemed odd to me, since the majority of taxes coming in is going to the school district. Wouldn't the school district pay based on the amount of money that they're bringing in, the amount of taxes they're collecting? Wouldn't the school district charge, or the person collecting, charge more money from the school district than the other two? Why are the costs being shared equally?
That, again, that was a system that has been in place for
And
26 years prior to me coming. That's how it's been done.
And then you mentioned increased cost. Yet I thought I heard the current tax collector testify, for lack of a better word, that he didn't think there would be increased costs. So what is your main impetus for saying that there would be increased costs?
Well,
You're saying from the school district, it's going to cost more to do it this way.
correct,
Simply talking about separate
Correct.
bills now.
correct.
Now, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear it. I want everybody to hear it. I want to hear the taxpayers on TV to hear it. If there is three separate bills, what are the increased costs the school district's going to incur?
It would be whatever additional cost it is to print and mail the tax bill. Right now, there is one tax bill with one mailing that's divided, that's shared by three governing bodies. If there were three separate bills with three different mailings, the loan cost of that would be borne by each municipality, by each entity, city, school district, and county.
Okay, so in listening to your testimony, and I appreciate that answer, I'll be honest with you, I can't find another objection other than the cost of a postage stamp, some extra forms, and an extra couple hours to separate a separate bill. I don't see a real objection from you to go in a different way, to go in separate bills. And did I miss something? Please.
I believe that what.
And what do you think those costs are, in real costs? What do you think it costs to do that? Are you talking $100, $200?
If the cost of the tax bills without postage were $24,000 this year, shared by a third, so you're looking at approximately $7,500. I would say that it would probably be $7,500, maybe half of that more to do the.
I appreciate it.
To do that.
$24,000 to print and mail all the tax bills and
To print.
just to print, not
Correct.
even mail.
Correct.
$24,000 to print tax forms?
That was the information that was given to me by the tax collector.
Data comes in, you've got forms, you put them into a printer. It costs $24,000 to print.
That was the information that was provided to me by the tax collector.
Wow.
Again, we don't print our
I'll
own.
do that for you for half the price.
We don't.
I'm sure we can get a lot of people to do that for less.
We don't print our own tax bills. Again, I believe because of the legislation, Scranton is unique, which we have in a elected single tax office. So.
Okay. I appreciate that. So your objection comes down to cost, and those costs seem to be all centered around the cost of producing and mailing these tax bills, which you seem, a rough guess, ballpark, to be about $7,500.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Representative Galloway.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one more question. I apologize.
The floor is yours.
I apologize. I did drive all the way from Bucks County, so.
I appreciate that very much.
And I did have 2 cups of coffee, which are wearing off. But the whole idea of March, I just wanted to finish this off, though. The idea that, again, where I come from, we pay as close to July as possible. We run a July year, fiscal year. Now, you're running a calendar year from December 31st, December 31st.
January 1st to December 31st.
January 1st. Is the idea of starting to collect school taxes in March because there's some installment situation going on, or?
Yes.
And that's the
Yes.
only reason for paying in March. And what, I mean, it seems early. I mean, our early period starts in early June. I mean, March seems early to me. It just does. And what would you do with that money if you don't need it until January? Are you putting this money in a?
Why would I not need it? I'm collecting current year real estate taxes in March, April, and May to pay current year expenses.
Oh, okay. I thought you were collecting next year.
No, no.
That's what I meant.
Oh, no. We are a calendar year school district that operates, our operational year starts January 1. So our tax year is for the calendar year. So on January 1, our operation starts with a brand new adopted budget with an adopted revenue stream. So the money we're collecting from wage tax, mercantile tax, real estate taxes is for the current year. So it'd be taking the fiscal year, and instead of moving it from July, you'd be moving it up to January. Same concept, only different time period.
So your budget is signed January 1st?
That's correct.
And your budget's signed before you start the process of, so you start the process of collecting taxes after your budget's signed?
That is correct.
Okay, that's different than most areas, and that's where I got confused. I appreciate that most places start the process of collecting the taxes, especially the discount period, before the actual budget's signed, or the end of their quote-unquote fiscal year. And that's important to note, because there does seem to be some, you seem to be in this cyclical pattern of collecting taxes all year long for a school district, and then there's always an ethical question of when do you collect these taxes? Do you collect them too early? What do you do with them? Do they sit in a bank account? Do they generate interest? All that kind of stuff. Who makes the interest? Traditionally and historically in Pennsylvania, prior to the 1990s, there was a lot of question of where this money went, how quickly it was being collected, and who got the interest. Actually, before 1985, 87, tax collectors actually could put this in an interest-bearing account and collect the money themselves. So I think it was important. I appreciate your answer. I do think that could have been, it should be maybe looked at, timed a little bit better, and explain to people why you're paying school taxes in March when they're not actually due to the following December. But you explained that they're actually due the previous December. Is that correct? I mean, it's an important point.
Well, if I could explain it this way, and maybe I'm not clear on your line of questioning, but the 2010 tax bill that a taxpayer would receive for school tax and would be for the 2010 year.
And
So
it was mailed in March of 2010.
it would be mailed in the end of January, February of 2010.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And with the installment payments, you have the ability to pay the four quarterly payments at the end of each quarter, with the last payment being due December 31st of the current year.
Appreciate that. Thanks for the testimony.
Thank you very much. I wanted to mention that we've been joined by a colleague, Representative Ron Waters from Philadelphia County, who also happens to be the chairman of the Black Caucus, and who also happens to be working very closely with a lot of representatives in the governor's office throughout Pennsylvania to try to help out with the tragedy over in Haiti, with the Haiti earthquake relief effort. And I want to thank him for traveling here from Philadelphia after several meetings to make sure that he was able to participate here in this meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Waters. Representative Pshinsky?
Thank you, Representative Murphy. And thank you, Mr. Sunday. Representative Galloway was leaning towards where I was going with this. It appears to me that maybe a redesign of this particular tax notice would be one way that you could clarify and make it more simple. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, yes,
Because you have the one mailing,
correct.
and when you look at $24,000, and you look at the entire concept of the amount of money that's collected through your school taxes, through your city property taxes, through your Luzerne County, or your Lackawanna County taxes, you know, it is a minuscule amount of money to compared to that. Would that be a fair?
That's a fair assessment, yes.
As an example, what would you collect when it comes to the total amount of school taxes?
Probably about 30 million.
$30 million, okay, and the county would be considerably?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay. Well, the point is it's an awful lot of money, and there is an administrative cost in order to get them out and so on. So a redesign of the tax notice might be something to consider. But your concern, again, was primarily the cost of this.
One of the concerns, the cost of this and the system in place, I believe, works. And I find it, I don't personally know of, other than the fees that are being assessed on the city portion, and I'm not here to offer testimony or comment on the city's portion, but that's, in what I've heard, that seems to be what the issue is. I don't know if I understand that the issue is more of a county collection or a school district collection. I do know, and people do remind me, that the school district takes the biggest portion. But I don't know if it's the fees that's the fees associated with a person becoming delinquent is the real issue for the school district. If it's a city issue, then, as I stated in my testimony, maybe it should be addressed by the city and not by the school district and the county.
Well, once again, I want to make that part of the record, because it appears as though that's what the major conflict is. You're okay with the system as it is?
Correct.
And would the county be, is there anybody here from the county that could justify or verify that?
I know Mr. Koljeski was supposed to be here. Representative Murphy indicated that he had some type of emergency. I can't answer for them. But my point in this testimony is that I believe that the system that we have in place, yes, with the redesign, it works to be included in this legislation for a system that I believe works. Again, that's my opinion. If it's a city issue, then it should be the city that's addressed, and not all three municipalities.
And I can concur with that, because without a doubt, it's been pretty obvious today that the system that's involved relative to the city and the kind of penalties, appear to be
Correct.
pretty excessive. And then the other point I would like to say is that this hearing and the hearings that we conduct throughout the state, is really critical. And your opinions, your knowledge, your experience helps us in guiding this legislation if we indeed go forward with it as it is. Another point is the fact that it's through this civil discourse that we can actually get into the real answers, so that we can find the frank and honest discussion and come up with those answers. And it's the embodiment of democracy. So I want to personally thank everybody who's come out here today and shared this information with us, because it is really vital. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Pszczynski. And if I may interject, through conversations with Mr. Koljeski, he indicated to me that he had a meeting with the officials from NCC, with the county, and they expressed an interest in perhaps the county taking over the collections for the delinquent city taxes as well. Now, he wasn't able to provide that testimony because he wasn't able to appear before this committee here today, but that was something that was shared in conversation between Mr. Koljeski and myself, and I would like to pass that on and add that to the record, please. Representative Santoni?
Thank you, Representative. Very quickly, First of all, there's a guy that looks exactly like you. Right back there. I don't know if that's your twin brother. He walked out, I'm like, whoa. Okay. I appreciate the copy of the real estate tax bill. It does clear things up for me anyway. I just have a question because Representative Galloway was questioning you, and I had some, because most school districts are July 1 and June 3rd. You're the only school district I ever heard of. Is there any other school district in the state that has a January 1 to
Pittsburgh.
City of Pittsburgh and Scranton, is it? Everybody
Yes.
else is July 1st.
Correct.
Because that makes a little bit more sense as to why you're sending your tax bills out
Right.
now, because it's similar to what we do, because I represent 18 school districts, including the city of Reading, and they're all July 1, and we send our tax bills out right after that fiscal
Correct.
year starts.
And there are, under Act 1, there are the time restrictions, there are 2 exceptions that are specifically defined in Act 1, which says Pittsburgh and Scranton.
And Scranton distressed city, are you guys under Act 47?
Scranton is a distressed city. And for the record, the school district is not an empowered school district.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Sunday. And I'll ask if any members of the committee have any closing remarks that they would like to make before we wrap it up for the day.
Thank you.
Chairman?
If I could, I just want to thank some members. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to tour Representative Smith's part of the district. We did a little tour, and I got to see the sort of pride that there is in this city. I've passed through the city before, but can't say I've ever spent much time here before, and I understand why people stay here now. I want to thank the University of Scranton for having us here today. It's a great facility, and thank Representative Murphy for having us here and bringing this issue to our attention. As Representative Santoni pointed out earlier, it would be nice if this could be resolved at a local level, but I think given the severity of the issue, I also think that if it's not resolved at a local level, that there's enough evidence to resolve it at the state level. It's not that we don't do that. We've done stuff for Pittsburgh on occasion where they can't resolve something locally, and we take it in our hands at the state level to get the issue resolved. And this certainly seems like one that rises to that occasion. So I know Mr. Sunday expressed a willingness, and Representative Murphy said some of the other parties have expressed a willingness to sit down. It'd be great to see everybody sit down and sort of figure this out for the taxpayers here locally and get this issue squared away. But like I said, if not, why, we'll certainly consider it at the state level. So again, thanks for having us here today, and I enjoyed being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And once again, thank all of you for coming here. I thank all of you who are watching on TV. I appreciate your attention to this very important issue. It's an issue that's been brought to my attention on many occasions, and it's been my contention from the very beginning that although taxes are a necessary evil, I think we could simplify the process and collect our taxes in a more compassionate and more efficient manner. Thank you very much.